I think we should start 3 years ago. Approximately 3 years ago, André came with his family to Lisbon from Porto. They lived for a long time in Porto and then came to Lisbon. And these 3 years mark not only the change of his city, but also the start of the project in this place here in Lisbon. And we met also more or less 3 years ago in a restaurant in Basel, in Switzerland, both on the way to the art fair in Basel. We have heard of each other, and I knew that André is starting this project, and we wanted to get to know each other and maybe have a communication about this project. So my question to you is, when you came to Lisbon, what did you think of making a project that actually has an autobiographical starting point? You moved into the city, you don't know the city, it's kind of a foreign city to you. Of course, you have been many times here, but also parallel to your coming to Lisbon, you started this project. Why did you come up with this idea?
When you move to a city like Lisbon, there is something that is very different from where I came from Porto, and that is with what I work normally, that is light. So the light and the color is completely different, as well as all the social context that is that has other issues that I never worked with before, and the population, the kind of people that live here. But I think essentially I started to work with the light, trying to understand and to read and to see how I could understand and start.
Why did you contact me at this early stage? I'm asking this because we have spent an unusual project over the last 2 years, working together, like being from the beginning in an intensive contact with each other. I think André has never experienced this, and I haven't experienced this. Usually in the world of art, in the world of photography, in the world of exhibitions, an artist is working, and at one point his work is ready, and he gets the chance to show it somewhere, and then he starts a discussion with a possible curator. And in this sense, in this situation, it was different. What made you contact me so early? Did you have this? Did you had from the beginning this idea that we could have a conversation while you were developing this project?
No, it's very interesting that you put that question, because I don't know. I had a feeling, but you never know what can happen. And I start always the same way. I don't know what it will be, but I feel. And as I knew your work, and I admire very much what you have been doing for the last, I don't know, more than 20 years, I could feel that you were the right person. You were the person with who I wanted to work now. And it's completely different when you arrive to a curator with a project that is already ongoing and with a project that has that it didn't start yet. So that was one of the things that interested me, like zero, starting from zero. You had to understand first who I was, then you started to see the first images that normally are very bad, or I don't know how you say that. I don't think even that we have images from the beginning here. It's like it's a process. It takes time. So that process, I think, is very important.
And when you look back now we opened this exhibition yesterday. When you look back now, what was different for you in relation to other projects? You are not the young photographer who have started, and now you made your first project. You made already 3, 4, 5 books and big projects, so you know how to develop a project. What was for you as an artist different to your other projects?
I think one of the first things that came to my mind is our collaboration, the way that we dialogue, the selection of the images, the way we thought about the book, the difference between the book and the exhibition. I think you followed me, and then I followed you. It's something like that. It's this wave. I think during this time we talked more about, I don't know, life and politics and everything that two human beings, two men can talk, and we drink, we eat, and then comes photography. So it's this that is the most interesting. It's life. It's you share, you feel, you work, and then you drink, and then you wake up. And
we met each other like three times in Zurich and 3 times in Lisbon, apart from Skype meetings and phones and emails. It was also for me a really interesting experience. For the first time to be like at the beginning of, usually as a curator you are at the beginning of a project. When you develop a thematically organized exhibition, then you are the origin of that exhibition, and then you start from scratch in a project, but you hardly ever start so early a dialogue with an artist like we did. It was
there is no formula for this. So I think the most important is this: you give yourself, and we drive the same car and we go somewhere.
We made an exhibition, and today is the book launch. The book is ready, is here, and here is a PowerPoint. And the PowerPoint is kind of a mix of both. So when you look at the book, you will see difference to this. When you go to the exhibition, you will see difference to this, just that you know what you see. We mixed it a bit up to follow these 2 lines, the exhibition and the book. But in both, in the book and in the exhibition, we have this usually man alone walking through the city. And the exhibition starts now with a group. In the book, they are more spread. Why did you photograph actually so many of them? What interested you to photograph these men? We saw now one before, and here you see a second one, and there will be. You see them here.
The process, how I work, I don't have a specific idea, but I have a need of, if I don't go, it's like if I go, I die. I cannot breathe. I get sick. Photography for me is a way of resisting. It's a way of surviving, and that is what is the most important. So when I look to these images, I can understand now why there is this existential part, this relationship with the man, looking to these men walking. And I understand that maybe in my subconscious I was looking for my father, because my father left me when I was 3 years old. He was a painter and he died, and I never thought about him so much in this process, that I was lonely, feeling alone in a place that I didn't knew also. So it's a confrontation also with the new territory, with life. So I think we are always looking for something, right? And maybe I was looking for him. That is how I understand. So I dedicated also the book to him. I never thought so much about him since I'm in Lisbon. I don't know why. And so I think there's this strangeness and this strength in this in the construction, and these men. There is somehow this relationship and this shadow and this mirror, I think. Our mirror, no? I will be this man or no, I don't know.
I don't know, 7 or 8 of them. Most of them, they are walking. Sometimes they are sitting somewhere, leaning to a house. Is it also kind of a mirroring of your own walking in the city? Actually, what you did while photographing these men was the same. You were walking alone through the city. Maybe sometimes you had an assistant, because you don't photograph for this kind of, let's say, for a second, documentary photography. You don't photograph in the usual style that you have a Leica in the old world, in the old analog world, a point-and-shoot camera, or just a smartphone camera while walking, but you photograph in a traditional way. You walk around with a tripod and you have a view camera. That means you have to carry and then place a tripod in the street. Then you have to put the camera on top. You have the black cloth that allows you to have enough darkness in order to see the image through the screen. Those men, do they also recall your walking through the city in this over the last 3 years?
I think what I'm doing is I'm putting questions. I'm not answering. So this is always an unknown territory. Because this idea of putting these men together was you did that, and in the book you have them separated, so it's like you are always walking, a continuous walk through the book, right?
But you took the pictures, no?
Yeah, but you saw them this way.
There were so many of them, it was impossible to oversee that there are many of them, that it seems to be a topic that interests you.
Yes, it's true. There are things that of course, I'm photographing since I'm, 15, 16 years old in this intensive way, some years much more than others, but my first book came in 2010, so I did many books, and what you try to do project after project is try to have always a way of surprise yourself, of trying to do new things and trying to listen to yourself and to be the most honest possible. And I think that is the best answer I can give to these images. I'm trying really to be honest.
In the exhibition, actually, we collected the images at the beginning. When you enter the exhibition, you see, I think, 7 of these walking figures in the city. And in the book, they are more spread. But in both, in the exhibition and in the book, rather soon we come up to this image here. And it's a little bit like it shows a little bit like the walk of these people, like from a different perspective. Before, you could say it's a cut, it's like a film. André photographs these men, and suddenly he photographs the way they walk. When you look at this image, you have the feeling from the position of the camera, he took the photograph, you have the feeling he comes up this way, and you see that you have a view into the kind of a normal view into part of the town, but it's barred, you cannot go further on. But in the middle you see a way. You have the feeling someone has walked and has left this trace. I think that image is very descriptive for this project, but also symbolic for this project. The entire project is of you walking through the city, through different times, going maybe taking, before you started, an idea in which part of the city you will go. Did you make up your mind when you started to walk in this city, that you came in this area? I don't know Lisbon, so I don't know exactly where we are. Did you decide that I want to walk in that quarter? Did you have a specific thought when you started off to walk to the city?
Yes, and this question brings me to your first questions about our collaboration, because I remember this image came after I came from Zurich, and we decided that I had to separate the territory by 7. Do you remember that we talked about that? Because we were trying to understand what I was doing in a certain moment. I was not even myself and knowing what these images were all about. So it was separation. We tried to separate and to try to read them. And then you came with this idea, André, you have to think about 7 places and try to go deeper in them, because I was like spreading around. And I think this project could not be, it's special for me, of course, because of this. And it could not be different, I think. It's like, it's you came with ideas when I was there, and then you come here, and then I show you places, and then we talk. So it's this ongoing, I don't even know now very well, but I remember, do you remember this? Don't you think that?
Why do you use a view camera? I'm asking this for a particular reason. When you do, in the history of photography, the Leica camera is totally connected to the reportage photography, to the city photography. If you think of photography in the 19th century, then you know that photography was very static. It was more or less studio photography, or if it was not studio, then it was like in the landscape studio photography. They photographed the pyramid because the pyramid was standing still and didn't move. You had your tripod, they had this incredible machine on top of this tripod, and they had to prepare their own plates and develop them on their own. And only with the Leica camera, which the first prototype was released early 1920s, and the real first one early 30s, and it became the camera of the next 50 years for reportage photography, for press photography, more. And it was obvious why, with this camera, the photographer became mobile. Before, he was a static figure together with his machine, and he became a mobile figure. It was a small camera. He could just walk the city, and have this small camera with him, and making any time. Usually they had a leather band around, and then to make at any moment of his thinking, watching a photograph. And later on, in the 90s, maybe through Japanese photographers, these point-and-shoot cameras came up, these small cameras, even smaller than Leica, where you can hold it with one hand and click from this position, that is a classical late 80s, early 90s story. Before then, the entire shift into digital cameras came. And we have these smartphones, which make all of us into photographers. And now this André Cepeda uses a view camera with a tripod in the city. It also means that the moment he takes a photograph, prepares the photograph, he hides his figure among the black curtain, the black cloth. But this hiding is the opposite of hiding. He exposes himself wherever he stands, in every corner of the city. When he starts to make a photograph, he is vulnerable, he is fragile, because he closes himself. He doesn't know who is behind him, who is on the left, who is on the right, if he's in danger or not. Why did you choose to kind of make a contradiction to a classical way of behaving in a city and using the view camera?
I use this view camera in different ways. Like if it's people walking, I use it like if it's a Leica, but it's not a Leica. You have to put the film and to make the focus before, and then you don't see what you are doing. but I'm so practical. I do it for so many times that I know more or less it's what I'm doing. But in the case of the landscape, what interests me, and I have been doing all that you said. I started with 35 millimeters with the Bernard Lossou style that you photograph as a reaction, and that is the poetry, like all these different styles. Of course, I had to study all them, but there's a moment that you realize that this is the way I like to photograph, and the tripod gives me the possibility to go in my landscape, go in the image. So I have the tripod, the camera, but I can touch the trees. I can go there, you know. I frame, and I frame it in a very rigorous way. I can be low, I can be up, I can go more like, you know, I can be so millimetric, and that is what interests me. Is like the composition, waiting, you know, okay, it's not perfect, wait a little bit, there's the wind, oh, I have not so much speed, so I cannot do, okay, I don't do. So many images you don't do, and that interests me also a lot, you know. So many things it's not possible to photograph. So many things you see that you don't put in.
Why do you say it's not possible to photograph? That interests me a lot, because every single human being on this world, apart from you, would immediately make this photograph and put it online on Instagram, and it is makeable. So what is not makeable for you? And it's an interesting difference for me.
Yeah, because sometimes you have to live. You have to live, you have to suffer, you have to cry, you have to laugh, you have to have things to tell, and for that you need to live. So you cannot be always photographing. So many images that you leave, it's not possible. And then, of course, there's a moment that you synthesize, and it comes, and it can transform in a form of a tree or or a stone for all the time that you have been living. That doesn't interest. What is important is what I was saying before, that you have to be really honest with what you are. You are. I know that I have many limitations, but I try, I work, I go, I fight.
Is it for you also a question of concentration? You know how fast we made an image. Sometimes we had a motor, even you make 100 images in 60 seconds with the motor, and then you choose in the studio which one is maybe kind of okay, but you don't even know what an image should be. But you seem to still, even if you walk through the city and expose yourself, you look for a specific concentration, no?
Yes. And I also understood with this process that it doesn't interest me the image, interests me this sequence, no? One image after the other. Of course, the image they have to be good, but all together, this body, you know, this.
If you take this, for example, these two images, or the two before, these two here.
Yes.
What made you take them? What did push you to prepare? If I look at this dog, I don't exactly know how he made it with a tripod, no? You don't know exactly.
No, it's not with a tripod.
He has an electronic link to the dog to say when he's ready with his tripod, the dog should run, no? How did you do this?
No, you have to be fast.
Be careful when you watch the image on the right-hand side, then you see that there are people hidden behind the mattress. The image that looks like a surrealistic image, just by chance somebody has thrown a mattress out of the window because they don't want to live together anymore, becomes a very tough, realistic value, which you don't see at the first step. And then we go into this image. They were shown at the first wall. You will see it right after. Sorry, we are not connected here in this one. Where did you find these places? I like this. I particularly like both images. The left-hand side I love for his poetry, And the right-hand side I love for something that maybe I'm exaggerating, I'm an elderly man. This is a classical tool for a playground for children, but maybe it seems to be the playground for children avant la lettre, very long ago. This place is no longer used. The color is going away. It's maybe rusty. It's maybe out of use. There are no children's around anymore. Maybe children's hang on mobile phones in their home and no longer out there. Really, really an impressive, for me, a symbolical image. And for you, what are those two images?
But that is always a very hard question. You don't...
I mean...
Because sometimes it's better not to know.
And the ball is back to me. Again, so I tell my story. I love this image a lot. It seems to be a wonderful situation where a landscape was mapped twice. They were measured the landscape at one point, and they made a cross. This is not a cross from the religion. This is a cross to mark a point. And for some reason, they mapped the whole landscape a second time to find out they made it correct. And they pushed a second cross in the same place, but slightly, one was a bit older and is kind of falling away. It gives me this feeling of this relation between wild nature and constructed nature. We know we don't live in nature. We live in a landscape made by mankind, measured. It's an image for me for measuring the world. Therefore, I like it so much. And I'm not going to ask you what you think about this image. These images make all this first wall and then the second wall, a corner I like particularly in the exhibition.
I just want to tell that during this process I learned a lot by the way you look to my work and you did this display. Do you want to talk about this rhythm, this musicality that you invented? And I think about when you told me there's a musicality in your work, and I said, yes, it's true, there's a musicality, and we have to put that in the title. And then we worked for 2 days. You remember, in the title it was so difficult to give a name because sometimes things don't have like a name. They don't born with a name. It is everything is abstraction somehow. And do you want to talk about that feeling you had about this musicality?
It's first I wanted actually to talk about this big image, because the effect that you use a view camera and a tripod made it possible that this big image exists. You cannot do it with another photograph. This image is 240 high, or maybe a bit more, maybe 320 large. And for that, you need good data. Very banal. You need rich, good data in order to be able to enlarge it. And I'm super happy that you were able to do this. There are 5 of them. All of them actually thematize the walking in the city. You will see when we go through it, you will always see there is a way or there is a wall hindering our walking, stopping our walking. So it's a lot about walking. And also this wall on the left-hand side is about, actually, and it helped us to structure the exhibition. If you go into a building where the walls are 6 meters high and the roof is maybe 18 meters high, then you have to ask yourself, what shall we do with photography in this? It's incredible. You cannot make an exhibition in here that works. So we needed like anchor points, and these anchor points which talk about moving through a city, anchor points that talk about moving, walking, helped us to structure the building the exhibition space in order to allow also to hang very small images, fine small images, that you go close to the wall, that you go away. So this structure has a lot to do with the situation in the building. But also then you walk through the city. You walk up and down. The only thing I know about Lisbon, apart from that I love it, is that it's never even. It's always going up, and when you're there, it goes down. And when you're down, it goes up again. So what you see on this wall is, you could say, it mirrors the city. It's not thought so natural, of course. It also thought just in the space. And, of course, this mixture of this balance you have in your photography about descriptive, describing the city, describing a situation, but at the same time, you stop describing it. We never really know exactly what your photographs are about. It's always, you are a little bit like stumbling. You start to say a sentence, and then you stop. And then you ask to me, could you please follow my sentence? And then, because the viewer then has to fulfill, if you want, what is in this image. So there's a beautiful word in German, it's Ahnung. I tried yesterday to find a translation. It seems not to exist. Maybe the English people sometimes use German words because they don't have an English word for it. Ahnung means this feeling that you start to read a sentence and then you don't exactly understand the meaning of it. It's halfway written, you can identify it. There is some indexicality, but it's just cut half. There were artists who made works out of that by cutting sentences horizontal in two parts, and then you had to fulfill the sentences. So you have a feeling for a possible sense in the image, but only a feeling. It's a feeling, it's a certain knowing to a certain extent, and then it starts to be only a feeling. Mm-hmm. And you have this very strong, and this kind of modulated view through the exhibition has to do with this poetry, this musicality, this unfulfilled description in your images that made me propose you that we could make the exhibition in this way. Not always, not to make it in a formal way, that it is a pattern that we use everywhere, but sometimes like on this side.
I think the editing of a work, I wanted to maybe we didn't discuss that so much, but editing photography is for me something very difficult. There are photographers that are very good editors, some are not so good. I don't think I'm a very good editor, but that is a central part of this work we did. Really trying to, but maybe I was not so honest with myself. But what I was saying, that I think in a certain point of the work, the images tells you what the work will be. What are the images that are going to be part? No, how many images? Why it's 80 images and not 50 images? And you know, mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to have more to tell what you want to say.
We are here on a specific moment in the book and in the exhibition. In the exhibition very early, also in the book pretty early. These two, what is it? These two men, we assume they are men. They kind of look like they are men, but we're not totally sure if they are men, but we assume it somehow. Particularly like the right one, where you have this back, this kind of volumes back. What is interesting in it, that I have the feeling in all your photographs in this project, you photograph men from behind, from the back. Was this a decision? Or I guess it wasn't a decision. Why did it happen? It plays a role that we will see when we go now further on. We will see that man, we saw it before, also the man walking from the side. There is only one foreign man where we see the face. there's one man in the project which you know personally, and you entered his apartment. But apart from that, the men are photographed from behind, while the women are photographed confronted. You look them in their face. Is this a feeling you had? Can you remember how this came about?
I don't think it's intentional. It's I don't know. I think when I photograph, there's not so much of this thinking. So
like this back and forth, just to see the difference, and also the next one, no?
But as I was saying, I think this is also part of the editing. We choose also these images.
Yes, it is.
To give this strangeness, to give this.
But it's part of the editing. But we went along of what you photographed.
Yeah.
I think we never edited against the photographs you took. That would have been. I mean, if it's a common decision which we took at the same time, you can do this, but usually you don't do that, no? And this is also one of the big images, but that's the image also talks about walking, because it prevents you to enter. It's when you come out of the small room in the exhibition, you walk directly into this wall, and when you look at the wall, then you see, it's a former door. It's a porta. It was a portal. It was opened, and then they closed it. At one point, the function of this building, of this situation in the city changed, so they closed it. And when you look it's very big in the exhibition. Then you see it. It looks like a hard-edged and a color-field painting. It's pretty, with a big brush taken, and it has an interesting balance. Everything is raw in this photograph. The city looks raw and a bit dirty, but then the floor next to it is very, very fine. It's an element of the photograph for me, of André, that he always has a certain tension in the image between this and that, between the rawness of the wall and the softness of the floor. Very often, the poetry, to call it like that, of an image, the sound of an image comes through this dialogue, through this tension, through this maybe contradiction, or maybe also not a contradiction, but a neighborhood, just two things being next to each other. In the back, you see the fourth of these big images that structure the exhibition. In the book, of course, they are also bigger. They are not in the usual frame of the images, but they run out of the pages. So they're cut off to also manifest that they are big, that they play a specific role. And of course, here in the space, they help us to structure the exhibition. I go on a bit.
Yes, there are 5 moments of these big images, plus the 2 moments of the sound that we...
The sound. Maybe we can talk about the sound here. It's coming maybe later, but maybe can we have the sound and talk a little bit about the role of the sound in the exhibition? Is it possible for you to play that 1 minute? That's 1 minute and 28 of one loop of Maria Reis sound tower. Sorry, that I liked. Oh, it's from you in the back. Sound tower, how I like to call them, which show the voice of humans, while the sound tower, the sound room of Gabriele Ferrandini, which unfortunately didn't send us this 1 minute to post it here, but you can listen it in the exhibition, is completely different. It's like your own accelerated heartbeat, so it's about rhythm. One is the voice of humans, the voice of, in this case, of women, and the other one is the heartbeat, it's the rhythm, it's the percussion, it's the rhythm of a city. How you knew them, you knew them before you or while you started the project. How did you come up with the idea to include the sound into the exhibition?
No, the interesting thing is, and it's also the way I work, is a continuous process of learning, and I worked with them for more than a year, and we made a tour in Portugal because they were playing, and I was making the light with them in stage, and we did a record, so that's why we toured, and the sound of, they never rehearsal, it's always improvisation, and it was growing and growing and getting more wild and abstract, and it was getting to a field that I said, Urs, you have to listen to this is incredible. I was like, wow, what is this? Like they were shouting and the percussion and all that, and so it was influenced me also when I was photographing this energy, and Urs said, wow, yes, this makes sense, and so the construction also of the images, they influenced me also to look with a different energy or different power or reaction, and I learned with them. I think what interests me in the improvisation is that it's what I was telling about photography. It's looking, reaction, experimentation.
It's for me the first experience of having an exhibition with photography and sound, and definitely the first that seriously works. Maybe it's a moment to talk a little bit, going a little bit closer and say, what are we looking at here in this exhibition and in this book? And I think we are looking at for me, from my point of view, now I'm the curator who starts to be the interpreter of the show that we did together. It's definitely a photography in the tradition of subjective photography, of subjectivation of documentary photography, something that you all know started in the 50s after the Second World War. It's important to say after the Second World War. Why did it start to be subjective? Why do we have in the 30s Albert Ringer-Patsch, and why do we have Robert Frank in the 50s? The difference is the Second World War. The difference is the wars. The difference is the 100 million people who died in the first half of the century. We are all born after. We have no idea what this must have been as an existential experience. And when 100 million people die, do you still believe in God? Do you still believe in your father? Do you still believe in the institution? Do you believe in the church who didn't help to avoid that these two wars broke out and made this incredible and the worst catastrophe in humankind? The only person you can maybe still trust, or it's a necessity to trust, is yourself. You are, as Jean-Paul Sartre said, you are thrown back to your own life. You are thrown in this world and you have to find your own sense, because there is no authority anymore that is not completely doubtful, because after this catastrophe, there's only doubts. And you can see in music, you can see it in photography, in art. In the 50s, this subjectivation started. In In the photography, it's Robert Frank, it's Van der Elsken, the Dutch photographer, it's William Klein in the 50s, it's Taide Moriyama in Japan in 1968, 69, 70, 71. It is Nan Goldin in late 70s, early 80s. It's Anders Petersen in the 80s and 90s, just to say a few of the famous names that when we look back. I think this photography of André is in this tradition, but of course it's no longer 1950, it's not 1980, it's 2020, so it's different. But it talks about the relation of a human, of one person in a complex society, in a city context, trying to find its way. And that, I think, makes it to a super strong photography, combined with your concentration, that you do your photography with a view camera, that gives you a strong concentration, as we see here, for example, in this photograph. Again, we have this tension. It's a rough situation of a city. It's at night. I don't know if it's late evening or if it's early morning. It has a strong hurting light. The building is like cut off. We call this, we see the firewall. In German, we say we see the firewall of the building. It has graffiti on it, but then there is this tender light of one apartment that gives us a sign somebody lives there. It feels like a candle illuminated and has a tenderness in which is incredible in this rough context. That's the way you develop, for me, a work that has a strong existential part. And the music does this as well. So the music and the images do this together. I go a little bit through the photographs to come a bit further. Some of the photographs show into dirt, into dark corners. Here images, and you will see always there are images that deal with the term of reality. Maybe we take it a bit later, towards the end of the book. On the left-hand side you see a real column, but a trompe-l'oeil behind, so you have two different realities to deal with. This Hercules figure, holding the Hercules or Atlas figure holding the earth. Then this other huge image of a man walking along the street. And then this, maybe at that point, I think we should start to talk about another element that is special in this exhibition and in this book and in your work, maybe in general. We have this tradition of black and white photography. For many, many decades it was necessary, it didn't exist something else. At one point it became a style, you were a black and white photographer, so it was possible to photograph in color. What is really fascinating in your work is that you always mix them. We've seen a lot of black and white, but now we also see color photography, and it is mixed. And I love it to look at it, that we also see it here and don't have to look up. I love it specifically in this double portrait in the book and in the exhibition. I think it's a wonderful, something mesmerizing to look at this. Do you want to tell a little bit how you met her? How the situation were? When did you talk? Did you take both photographs at the same time, meaning in the same 5-10 minutes, or how did it happen that you made this?
When I photograph someone, for me it's the same. I do it the same way I photograph a building or a tree, or it's with the same energy and dedication, and I see more the drawing and these people and these places, I walk so much time looking for them that when I find them, I'm like in trance sometimes. So then arrives what I said before. I don't question so much. I work. I look. I try to understand how I can put that in image. I think that is the most difficult part. Not everything is possible to photograph.
Did you talk to her?
Yes, I talk.
She actually doesn't look like she would ever talk to you, no?
No, I talk with people. I'm not. But yes, I relate with them. It's very important. There is this relation that you create, that I create with my portrait. How do I call them?
A double portrait here. It's like a double portrait. Did you do it in the same time, in the same?
Yes.
I don't know, 2-3 minutes.
Yes. Because since I photograph with these plates, you can change the color in black and white easily. So, and you have, as I was saying, different speeds. You have different ways of the light that goes in. The color image is a diapositive, so it reacts in a way that I wanted this red of the because I in this work I experimented a lot. I experimented very high exposures for minutes and minutes, and in color, negative, in diapositive, in black and white, trying always to that what I want to say it corresponds in the image, you know, or is it in color, or is it in the depth of the blacks, or you know, or the contrast, or it's something very personal, but it's photography. It's a technical, it's process. You have optic, you have physics, you have all these.
And in the end, you have these two portraits. It's if you look at these two portraits, look at each of these two portraits. Each of the portraits are really strong reflection of humankind, of this person, but also of an existence standing somewhere. And then the two images together open like a realm, like a space. One is commenting the other. You start to see the space between the two portraits. You see this person in two slightly different moods. She looks pretty tough on the right-hand side in the color images, and a bit softer she appears in the left-hand side. And suddenly we have this game again between. I told you before that there's often a tension in the images, and here it's a tension in two images, shown in the book and shown in the exhibition as a double portrait.
Yes, the magic part of art is you walk, but when you find something that you are, sometimes you are looking for that for years. You see 200 people, 300 people in a day, and it's that woman. Why? I don't know. It's her. You don't question. It is. It has to be. And it's with everything. It's my confrontation. I think this work. It's not just about me. It's about us. It's about the way we understand the world. It's this humanity that interests me, you know. It's what interests me is really this dialogue with you, with sharing and being all together. This makes sense for me.
It brings me to a point which I forgot before when I was talking about subjective photography. And the way you were talking now, describe it until you find this image that actually works, that actually is able to touch us, to think us about ourselves, about the person in the image, but also about ourselves, about maybe humanity, a big name. But it makes clear that you are not a conceptual artist. You don't have a concept, and then you fulfill your concept by finding images that fit into the frame. but you are the stray dog. You are the dog running through the city and finding situation that after a while start to create a bigger picture. Each image has its own right, its own strengths, its own tension. All the images together starts to create neighborhoods, starts to create moods, and you create a kingdom of situations. But they take time. You have to find them. You walk. You don't know exactly before you do them that you will find them. Maybe you have some of these images in your head, and then you don't find them. But you're writing not at home a concept, and then you're making concept A, done, concept B, concept C. You are this stray dog of Daide Moriyama. I guess you also feel yourself like that.
Yes.
Very extensive answer. I'm sorry for my question. No, in this silly sense. No,
it's very important, the confrontation with the world. I'm a photographer that walks and it's looking for images. It's hard, and it's like that. I don't know how much more time I can handle with it because it's so heavy. My material. I was doing these images, and I was always asking myself, why am I doing this every day, walking alone in the street with this tripod and this heavy thing in my back, and I'm so tired, days after days, and sometimes you don't know, but you do it.
In the exhibition, in the book, you find images that cinematize the wall in the city, where you stop. You cannot walk further. And maybe the wall is just a block, or it starts to speak to you. So I show you 3 or 4 images here, like this one. But then also like that. It's a wall, it's some writing. Does this writing recall to you?
Yes.
Thank you for this intense answer. No, it says, I'll never surrender.
I will never surrender.
And next to, we have shown it in the book, more or less, but sure in the exhibition, next to these images here, a bit rougher image. It's not, this is rough, this is like protecting structure, and this is violating structure. So the entire book and the entire exhibition talks about these dialogues. And then it's the image coming with, I will never surrender, I will never give up. Walking. Endless walking. In this image here, I wonder if you knew the person. It's a situation that is a bit unusual in this project. It feels to me that André has arrived 3 years ago in Lisbon. Of course, he had his friends before, and he came often from Porto to Lisbon. It's not a foreign terrain. But you feel in the exhibition that you're not often in a space. You are more outside. You look at the houses. You're not in the houses. Here you are in the houses, in the house. Therefore, I'm asking you, did you know that person?
Yes.
What is your relation to that? How did he come up? Maybe you can tell us a bit the story, how he came to this one photograph.
I think it's again the same thing. I'm looking for these places for a long time, and this person that lives in this house now is in prison, but he used to be my guide. I used to walk with him because you have the normal roads that you walk, but there are people that have secondary roads that we don't normally use. So there are people with who I feel really good, and they like this woman, the woman the people I portray in the book. It's
And then
it's a strong part of this work. Very important is the way I relate with these people and these places. So it's not easy to find them. It's even more difficult today, I think, because they are disappearing and they are putting the cities are getting like very clean. So
is the city of Lisbon also going through the process of gentrification?
Yes, yes.
Does these
much.
corners disappear, these people disappear?
Yeah.
That we see in these images, or we see the structure of those people in, not the people, but the structure of them? Did you also have a guide in these parts? In one corner of the exhibition, in one part of the book, the facades the buildings become facades. It's getting a bit more glamorous, a bit more reflective, a bit colder. It's no longer the hut in the city, it's not the dark corner, it's not the smelly pile, but suddenly it gets cleaner. It gets fresher, cleaner, maybe it gets more commercial, more rich, to use those 4 letters, R-I-C-H, just as a metaphor. Did you have a guide there also, or were you alone on the way to?
When you photograph during the night, it's sometimes it's hard. But here in Lisbon, I work much more alone than normally I do. Much more.
These images, are they taken all in the same area, or a bit here and there?
Here and there, yeah.
Then you see them installed a bit that they feel like elements of one big wall, one big facade. Now we see 2 or 3 images, which tell us a bit that we often have in documentary photography a simplification. You might recall this discussion, what a documentary photography does do, what he is allowed to do, what he is not allowed to do. If he wins a competition as a documentary photography, and then someone finds out that he has moved the person away in the background, then he loses his prize, and the prize is given to someone else, and a huge discussion comes up. But actually, in the term of documentary photography, there's an extremely simplification what reality is. Reality, we all don't look at the same reality. We all have a different reality. The moment we watch, it's always a bias between what is there and what I see, what I bring in my head with it. And these images, they talk about this. You see that there are different layers in the image. It's not just one wall, and it's a clear reality. You can identify the reality. I have to go a bit further that you also see it, like here. Or in the image, maybe it's that image is coming, what I thought. Again, a situation where we had this before, and I said we can talk here a little bit more. You have a tree in the foreground, and then an image in the background, and you realize after a while, when you look at it, something is a bit strange, that you see that this tree is standing in front of, I don't know, a wall where this photograph is pasted on as a wallpaper. And the light that is shining on is, again, like a so-called real light shining from outside on it. So we have not one level of reality, but we have more or less two or three realities in this image. That's interesting to have it in such a documentary photography, because I think we are mistaken by having the feeling that when I stand with a camera in front of a house, a wall, a tree, then I see one reality. I think this doesn't exist. A lot of these things are coded and have a different meaning. And when you start to just walk around it, you discover different realities. Also here. Towards the end of the exhibition, a bit less in the book. Towards the end of the exhibition, the images get more abstract. They go a step back from reality. They take reality as a prospect. They take the reality and they change it into an abstract image. Out of 10 images towards the end of the exhibition are clearly more abstract, a bit less in the book. And it's interesting to say this a bit less in the book, because the book and the exhibition are strongly connected. They are done out of the same material. Actually, in the exhibition are maybe 3 images more than that are not in the book, and in the book are 3 or 4 images that are not in the exhibition. But when you look at them, when you take the book, maybe afterwards in your hand, and you walk through the exhibition, then you'll see the sequences are pretty different. They are similar and different. They have the same mood, but they are different. It's quite simple why. An exhibition is a space, it's a house. You place in a house images, and this exhibition space here has a circular rhythm. It's like a watch. You can watch, and at the end you can restart it. That gives a completely different structure than to have a book that starts from A to Z, and at Z it's finished. So there are different narrations in the book. So maybe for one of you it's interesting at one point to compare this. They're clearly different, but it's the same material. I go further. As we are already talking for more than an hour to come to an end.
More than an hour here, already.
You see these more abstract images, beautiful images done in the city. Then in the book, it's a little bit like music towards the end. It's this dark image, these stairs, then this shrill image, this extraction of a wall, of a orange painted wall, which becomes a painting, a photographed painting, and then as a last image, as the dissolution of all in this extreme white image.
It ends with light.
It ends with light. And there is a lot of darkness in the book and in the exhibition, but also this image, this last image, which actually is not in the exhibition, but only in the book. Shall we stop here?
I think so.
Maybe you have questions from your side, something that we didn't touch, you would love to know from one of us. Otherwise, we stop and we move over to a place where there's also beer, and then we can continue to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.